And this is WMNF Tampa. Stay tuned for True Talk.
Welcome to True Talk on WMNF 88.5 with Ahmed and Samar. On today's program, we're going to be speaking about the big scandal that's happening where Trump administration officials were on a group chat speaking about an attack on Yemen and the fallout from that. In it, they were using this public commercial group chat that's not classified, not protected, to communicate about an attack on Yemen. The problem is they included a well-known journalist who was part of the group chat, and he was reading all of it. He didn't think it was real. Turns out it was. What was communicated in those messages, and what is the fallout from it? We're going to have on a specialist on Yemen, and why did the United States even attack Yemen to begin with? And we're also going to be talking a little bit about Ramadan and, of course, what's happening in the ongoing genocide in Gaza by Israel. That and more when we come back. This is True Talk on WMNF.
شبابي وينك الو يا الغالي وين الو سلم لي على الحبيبه عايش بالناس غريبه مش عارف وكري وين الو يا عمري وينك الو يا شبابي وينك الو يا الغالي وين الو سلم لي على الحبيبه عايش بالناس غريبة مش عارف وكري وين قالوا يا حبيبتي نعرف اللي طالت غيبتي الأيام ضحكوا على شيبتي وشيبة ولت شيبة ما حبوا طيبتي بس تستنى في خيبتي والأرنبة طلعت ذيبتي وشوفنا.
Hello. Welcome back to True Talk on WMNF 88.5 where Summer and I are here. Summer, a lot's been happening this past week, and currently happening. There's never a dull moment. It's like every hour things are changing.
Yes, Ahmed, never a dull moment and never an excuse not to have a show like True Talk where we talk in depth about issues that sometimes the mainstream media will not be talking about. Like we're lucky today we're going to be talking to Jihan Hakim, who is a Yemeni, and she's chair of the Yemeni Committee, Alliance Committee, and she will tell us about like the human toll of what we see so briefly on TV, like maybe an image of an exploding or a firebomb or something, but we really don't know the drastic effects on the people who are being bombed and killed. So yes, not a dull moment. But Ahmed, Ramadan is ending soon. How has fasting been for you?
Yeah, Ramadan is here or ending.
Obviously, Ramadan is taking a toll on you.
I mean, it's now the end of the month. It's the 25th day. Yes, we are counting the days. And we're
Not
considered now...
Ahmed. It's the 27th day.
No. 27th day is going to be Thursday. Today's the 25th. Oh, yeah. Okay, so you're right. We are. Today is the 27th. However, we're recording this beforehand, so today is the 25th. So we're recording this because, it's important that people know we're not recording this live because a lot could change between now and Thursday. So we're actually recording this. I'm glad you reminded me. Okay. We are recording this on Tuesday, the 25th, which coincides with the 25th day of Ramadan. This will air on the 27th of March, which also happens to be the 27th day of Ramadan. They normally don't coincide. They're not in sync. It just happened this year. Ramadan and March started at the same time. We explained this before, that Ramadan the Islamic calendar, and the month of Ramadan, which is on the Muslim calendar, runs on a lunar calendar, just like the Hebrew calendar is also lunar, and it goes by the cycle of the moon, not the sun. So the days there on the lunar cycle is actually 29 to 30 days as opposed to 30, 31 days. And that's why. Anyway, so yeah, it's the Right, yeah.
So are we fasting 29 days or 30 days? Do you know?
You know, the thing is, because Islam is a very traditional religion, and there's specific verses in the Quran that says, start the month of Ramadan with the new moon and end it with the birth of a new moon. And when is a moon born? Sometimes you could see it by the naked eye. Sometimes you could see it, with the telescope. Of course, they've got this down to a science now. They know exactly when a moon is born. However, it's up to the interpretation of the people. So there's some differences, some technical differences between Muslim communities as far as their interpretation. Most, however, or a lot, are going by that it has to be seen by the naked eye, or with some magnifying, devices. But it has to be seen physically. It cannot just be done by calculation. So for most communities, including Tampa here and other places, they actually go out the night on the eve, or on the 29th, the eve of the 29th, and they try to see if a new crescent is born. And depending on that, then they'll celebrate Eid holiday the next day, which means the month of Ramadan is over. But if they don't see it, then they complete it to the 30th day. So on the night of the 28th, I guess, the 28th, the night of, I guess it will be on Friday night, this Friday, Muslims around the world, especially like the religious bodies, will be out trying to see where this crescent moon is. If it's sighted, then...
So what if it's sighted, Ahmed, in, let's say, Michigan or...
Yeah, again, that's another debate. There are people that go by local sightings and people that go by global sightings. So there are some communities, depending, again, these are minor differences, but there are two things in the Muslim community that are always debatable. And they both start with the ha, in H, it's with the H, hilal and halal, which is basically the crescent and what is permissible to eat. Halal meaning something permissible. So just like, you have kosher food or kosher meat, like, there's a kosher diet in the Jewish community. People that observe kosher could only eat certain things. Meat has to be kosher, their diet has to be. So in the Muslim community also, there's dietary laws that is called halal in Arabic, which means permissible. And for Muslims, that's the halal issue. The other issue that there is disagreement on is the hilal, which means the crescent. And whether you sight it, whether it's by the naked eye or not, or by, a calculation, or whether it can be a local sighting or a global sighting. So the local community in Tampa actually goes by global sighting. So if it's seen anywhere in the world, then at least before our time zone, then we'll recognize that as a sighting and observe, the holiday, which marks the end of Ramadan with the global sighting. However, there are small communities that will say we'll only honor local sighting. That means it has to be seen within the community or at least within the United States. Some will say local sighting means the East Coast, like time zone. So anyway, very technical stuff. But basically, Eid is scheduled around what people are predicting that it's going to be Sunday. There's a small chance that it could be Monday, but it's going to be Sunday is what people are hoping for because, again, it's a weekend day, easier to organize and stuff. But you can imagine the nightmare communities having to schedule holiday festivities and stuff without knowing the exact date. So
yeah, I agree, especially if you have to, because we do have the morning prayer, the Eid prayer, and there is a breakfast that should be served. So yeah, I know the logistics of it. I mean, it's easier in the Arab world because it's going to be a holiday anyways, the last 3-4 days. But here, if you have to go on Monday to work, but you tell your boss, oh, I just found out that today is my feast. Like, why didn't you tell me the day before or the week before? And it's a bit complicated when it comes to Eid in a non-Muslim country. But Ahmed, I think Jihan Hakim is just joined us. And I want to say Ramadan Mubarak to Jihan, and she is chair of the Yemeni Alliance Committee. Good to have you on True Talk, Jihan.
Thank you so much, and Ramadan Mubarak to you and the listeners as well.
Thank you, dear. We want to talk about the latest bombing in Yemen. I think on Saturday there was an airstrike, which came after the Houthi movement announced last week that they will resume its naval blockade on Israeli ships because Israel violated the ceasefire. And then there was a strike where I think 32 people were killed and 100 were wounded. And usually with the wounded people, it's mainly women and children. But before we talk about that, Jihan, maybe our listeners need to know a little bit about Yemen. If you read American newspapers, they tell you it's one of the poorest countries in the Middle East, if not in the world. Not much coverage of Yemen except if it's being bombed. Can you tell us a little bit about Yemen and the recent history of Yemen and maybe who are the Houthis?
Sure. Thank you for asking that question. I know oftentimes when we Google Yemen, you see bearded men wearing arms and looking aggressive. And it just further perpetuates this narrative that Arab Muslim men are brutal and angry and terrorists. So, but Yemen, on the contrary, is where my family is from, and it's actually one of the oldest continuously inhabited lands in the world, over 2,500 years old, and it's home to architecture, art, music, coffee, a lot of beautiful things, music. But, you know, just to give us a little bit of a history lesson as far as how the West most recently got involved, in March of 2015, under the leadership of Malik bin Salman, who was the newly crowned prince of Saudi Arabia at the time, the Saudi-led coalition, which included the United Arab Emirates, launched devastating airstrikes on Yemen. So what started as a civil war in 2014 quickly escalated into a regional inferno. From bombing border stations to shelling from the sea, the coalition destroyed Yemen's already, really small military infrastructure early on. And from the beginning, I think folks forget that the Obama administration stepped in to provide logistical and intelligence support to the coalition, along with U.S.-made arms. This support continued under both the Trump and Biden administrations. U.S.-made bombs have targeted hospitals, schools, school buses, and weddings. And most recently, just yesterday, I believe, that the cancer treatment center in Sada was bombed. And this quote-unquote conflict even disabled Yemen's internet service, causing a countrywide blackout. And these are just a few examples of the devastating war crimes that have been committed. But there's another aspect of this war that will hardly get any attention, which is the blockade. Since the very start of this war, the Saudi-led coalition imposed a brutal naval, land, and air blockade, severely restricting the flow of food, fuel, and medicine to the Yemeni people. And while the U.S. has been complicit in enforcing this blockade, the U.S. Navy specifically, it continues to actively deny it, despite numerous investigative reports such as the CNN one and eyewitness accounts. A blockade is, in fact, as we all know, an act of war. So the impact from this catastrophe, over 7 years of war, have directly killed more than 150,000 people in Yemen. But when you factor in the indirect effects, like famine and disease, which are brought on due to the blockade, that number rises to at least 400,000 killed. And the Saudi-led coalition is responsible for the vast majority of these deaths. Tragically, at least 85,000 children under the age of 5 have starved to death since the war began. So this is all due to the support and the backing of the U.S. And the West, the U.K. as well. So in 2022, there was a truce, thankfully. So Saudi-led airstrikes paused at that time. But we know that in 2024, things changed. They took a dangerous turn. And in response to Ansarullah blocking Israeli-owned ships, the U.S. and the UK began bombing Yemen illegally. And then in July of last year, Israel also joined in, and they have been bombing Yemen. So Yemen has been bombed over the last few years by some of the world's largest superpowers.
And who are the Houthis? Are they the ruling class, and then sometimes they are confused with Ansarullah, or they are the same group of people?
Sure. So the Houthis, that name is actually the family name of Badr ad-Din, their political commander or leader. But the movement itself is called Ansarullah. They call themselves Ansarullah, which means the helpers of Allah. They are a movement that began in the 70s, trying to push back against Western intervention, influence from the Gulf. And like I said, it was led by Badr ad-Din al-Houthi. But since then, commoners or Yemenis from all over have joined the Houthi movement because of the influence of outsiders. Yemen is a sovereign country, but unfortunately, there have been too many hands that have been trying to influence Yemen, whether it's Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, the U.S., the UK. This movement is really pushing back against imperialistic intentions and agendas. But obviously, they themselves have been guilty of a lot of crimes against their own people. So it is a complicated situation. But I don't want us to lose focus that us as Westerners, our taxpayers, are funding war crimes in Yemen, and that should be the focus.
So why are the Yemeni people in general, and I'm not talking about the Houthis or whoever is in power in different areas of Yemen, but the Yemenis go in hundreds of thousands to the streets demonstrating against the genocide going on in Gaza. Why is this? There is so much compassion and ability to go to the streets, which you don't see it happening in the rest of the Arab and Muslim world.
Yeah, that's a good question. I get asked that all of the time. Solidarity or passion for the Palestinian cause has been embedded into the fabric of Yemeni society. I remember myself going to Yemen as a little girl and remember chanting about how Damm al-Falastini, Dammana, for example, like the blood of the Palestinian people is our blood, like we are one. So the intersectionality has been interwoven, ever since the inception of Israel as a settler colony, as a settler state in Palestine. So it is, the Yemeni people look at the Palestinian cause as an obligation, as a responsibility of all of the Arab world. And they actually condemn Arab leaders for not stepping up and doing the same. So I give credit to the Yemeni people for standing up, even if it means that they are going to be continuously bombed and starved themselves.
If you're just joining us, this is True Talk on WMNF, and we are talking to Jihan Hakim, who is chair of the Yemeni Alliance Committee. I think I read something from Just Foreign Policy, and they say that these attacks are not constitutional, and they do not end the slogan that Trump ran on, which is ending the endless wars in the Middle East. I know you are an American and you live here in the States. Is there any debate going on about, why are we bombing Yemen? And this is in light, of course, of the recent leaks of the Atlantic and Jeffrey Goldberg. Maybe we'll talk about it in a minute. But any sort of discussion in Washington about the legality and the violation of the Constitution, the American Constitution, when it comes to just bombing Yemen whenever somebody decides to?
That's a great question, and it's something that I have been asking myself as I am witnessing the dialogue online, on Twitter, and even as there are Senate hearings happening right now on intelligence. And it's a great example of American exceptionalism from both parties. Yes, lack of privacy is bad, I agree. but also why is the U.S. illegally bombing Yemen? That is totally left out of the discussion right now, and it has been ever since Obama started bombing Yemen in 2015. So we have been trying ever since 2016 to introduce a war powers resolution that would restrict or halt the power, which is not actually given to the president, right? Or giving power back to the Congress, who do have the power to authorize war. And unfortunately, we've been unsuccessful. We have tried under Trump, tried under Biden, and we're talking again as Yemeni American community organizers to see how we can bring back this conversation. But I think it's worth it because what the U.S. is doing in Yemen is unconstitutional. It's illegal, and that should be the focus of the of this leak right now, and not only about privacy.
So this is Truth Talk on WMNF. We're speaking to Jihan Hakim about Yemen. Why are the Houthis bombing or threatening Israel, even though they're so far away?
Yeah, well, I think I think the beginning of that is or the start to that was Yemen began blockading Israeli-owned ships. To be clear, they began blocking Israeli-owned ships in the Red Sea, where they have authority over. So that's how, that's kind of their response to Israel's never-ending bombardment and genocide on Palestine. Because of their actions, the U.S., the U.K., and Israel began bombing Yemen. So Yemen, as a sovereign state, has the authority to defend itself, right? So they are defending itself. They are defending themselves against all of these superpowers. So I think their response is well within their right. And I think that the global community needs to come around and see the truth for what it is, that these wealthy superpowers have no right to bomb Yemen. And I think I would add also that if we think about the U.S. and the U.K., they are not defending the U.S. and the U.K. because both of these countries are under no imminent threat. They are defending Israel. Why is the U.S. defending Israel? I think that's the question.
So, it's now been 16, 17 months since October 7th. And, Israel's bombardment of Gaza, which many people have, described, including us here on the show, as that's a genocide. And, Israel's surrounded by all these Arab and Muslim countries, and it seems like Yemen is the only one responding or trying to do anything about it, even though they are not the strongest or wealthiest. Some would describe Yemen as being one of the poorest countries in the region, and not the strongest militarily, obviously. But how do you explain that, this militarily weak country is actually coming to to be in solidarity with the people of Palestine?
I think Yemenis are showing the world what true solidarity looks like, even like I said, at the expense of their own country's stability, safety, at the expense of their own lives. And it's something that the rest of the world should step up to do. They need to step up to the globe's bullies, who think that they can continue to blockade, bomb, starve, sanction, which is the U.S. and the U.K. And the Gulf, actually, if you look at how the dialogue is online in Arab countries, they are shaming the Gulf, who are much richer due to the oil, not because of anything else, but they are being condemned and shamed and being looked at as cowards. So I commend Yemen for stepping up, and I really hope that the rest of the world could do the same.
So the accusations against Yemen and the Houthis, or the people that are launching these attacks, the group that was mentioned earlier, the Houthis, that they're really doing the bidding of Iran. Iran is funding them. This is a constant, accusation that we hear, that really Iran is behind all of this. Even Trump said something like, well, the Houthis, let's see how tough you are, or something like that, if Iran is not funding you or supporting you with the weapons. So is this just the Houthis, being a proxy for Iran and attacking Israel, or trying to defend Gaza because Iran is telling them to do that, or how do you answer those accusations?
Yeah, this narrative has been spewed ever since the beginning of the Obama administration, giving a green light to the coalition to start bombarding Yemen. And it is just a game of language to really demonize the Yemeni people, who are completely autonomous. Yemen is a sovereign state, completely far away from Iran, does not take any orders from Iran. Khomeini himself said just the other day that we have we are not attached or in collaboration with Yemen. I want to say like a week ago or something. So I think anytime you want to, build warmongering support, Iran is often thrown into the mix. Either Iran or Russia. They're the two, global boogeymen, according to a lot of the laymen people of the world. You hear Iran and it's like, okay, now that means death to America. But actually, in reality, Iran has very little influence to what Yemen has been doing, whether it comes to the political landscape of Yemen itself, or its actions outside, as we're speaking right now about what's happening in Israel, between Yemen and Israel. The little support that they do get from Iran is actually media support, for example. But because there is a blockade in place, food and water is not even able to be smuggled in, let alone weaponry. So I think that that is an empty claim, and it's baseless. There has been no proof ever since 2015 that Yemen is Iran's proxy. It is just a tactic by the West to really discredit Yemen. I think it's actually exacerbating racism, anti-Arab sentiment, that these Arabs are poor and they're brutal and they only take orders from others, when that's contrary to the truth. The Yemenis they have their own political system, they have their own ideologies, which are, separate from any other country, whether it's Iran or anyone else.
Right. But there has been some have described it, there has been an ongoing civil war within Yemen, and Yemen is divided. I mean, they do have sovereignty, but it seems like there are two different main groups that are controlling different parts of Yemen, what are described as the Republic of Yemen, which is internationally recognized and by the UN. That includes the Yemeni Armed Forces, etc. And then the other side is the Supreme Political Council, which includes, the Houthis and Houthi-aligned groups. And so, I mean, when you say they have sovereignty, and then, there's also something called the Southern Transitional Council. So there's like three different type of alliances that are in Yemen. It doesn't seem like they're all on board with these attacks. It's basically mainly the Houthis that are taking the lead on it, right?
Yeah, to be clear, when I said sovereignty, Yemen itself as a country has sovereignty.
Okay.
Not necessarily led by the Houthis. There are multiple factions in Yemen. There's the STC, like you said, the Southern Transitional Council. There's the Sharia, that is known as the quote-unquote internationally recognized government, when it's only recognized by the UN, which we know that the UN is useless anyways. So it doesn't mean anything that they are coined as internationally recognized. Yemen is an extremely tribal country. So, inside of Yemen, there are multiple groups and political authorities. These three that you mentioned are the ones that have the backing and maybe have a little bit more military support. So the STC is being supported and backed by the United Arab Emirates. the internationally recognized government or the Sharia is being supported by Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabia, and then the West as well. And the Houthis, or Ansarullah, as they call themselves, are just themselves. And to be clear, the Yemeni Alliance Committee is nonpartisan. I'm clearly stating what the landscape looks like on the ground. And the Yemeni people.
Who's nonpartisan? Who's nonpartisan?
The Yemeni Alliance Committee in my organization.
Okay, yeah. So I was going to ask you, that was going to be the next question. Do you guys see yourselves, the alliance, as, supporting or sympathizing with one of these different factions?
Our call has always been to restore peace to Yemen, to remove all outside external influences, and especially because we live in America, we are American taxpayers. Our call has been to end the role of the U.S. in its bombardment and promotion of war on Yemen. And so we support no parties on the ground, and instead we support the Yemeni people, which are our people, our families, and our loved ones. So that's where we stand.
Are the Houthis designated as a foreign terrorist organization now?
Yes, Trump did that as soon as he got into office, and it's something that he did right before he left office. Biden rescinded that label, but yeah. So that's. Let me just say really quickly why that's a problem. I think many of us can care less who are labeled as terrorists when it comes down to what's happening on the ground. But why it's a problem. That any organization or any group are called FTOs, whether they are Ansarullah or anyone else, is because anyone who supports the areas where 80% of the country is being controlled by Ansarullah currently, anyone who supports or donates or funds the people who are starving and being bombed, they can get into legal trouble. There is a sanction there. So, I mean, that what the FTO is doing on the Houthis is perpetuating the famine. So it doesn't punish the Houthis. It punishes the Yemeni people.
Yeah, because then, like, for example, because there's a famine in Yemen, it's one of the poorest countries in the world, and now you have people and children starving, and that's not necessarily hurting the Houthis, but it's hurting the average, these poor people that are in camps and displaced. What does that look like? Like, basically, how many people, what's the current status as far as the poverty and the lack of food, or the situation with the famine in Yemen right now?
Yeah, it's really bad. Like I mentioned, so these restrictions are specifically targeting quote unquote Houthi controlled areas where 80% of Yemenis live. So that means that number of people, which is approximately 20 million people and a population of 30 million, are without water, running water, electricity, regular food, access to medicine. It is extremely devastating.
Yeah, when you're looking at the land, the map of Yemen, I guess the area that the Houthis control is probably about a third or 25%, but you're saying that area is the most populated, so it accounts for about 80% of where the people live, whereas the big swath of land is mainly not that populated.
Right, yeah.
That's
20%
more
of
inland.
the population. Right.
Okay.
20% of the population is mostly in the south, which is like Aden and other areas, Hadramaut and stuff.
Okay, Samar?
Yeah, I wanted to move to this disturbing, actually, revelation, which Jeffrey Goldberg, and he is editor-in-chief of The Atlantic. He was added by, I don't know if it's by mistake, to a chat on an app called Signal, where anybody can have this app, and the defense minister, the vice president, many advisors, some of them in the White House and some in the intelligence community, were talking about bombing Yemen and when they should do it, how they should do it, if they should do it. And I think the vice president was against bombing Yemen. And the whole the conversation was about sending a message. Like, they killed 32 people and wounded more than 100. And you said they just bombed also a cancer hospital, just to send a message. And when the vice president said, I don't think it's a good idea, maybe we should postpone it, the Minister of Defense, the Secretary of Defense said, okay, the Americans don't understand Yemen. They don't know the Houthis. They don't know anything about Yemen. So we have to have two things to say. One, blame Biden. Two, blame Iran that it is backing Yemen financially. How did you, as a Yemeni and as your own people are being bombed, the callousness, the carelessness, the lack of humanity in these discussions when they decide, should we bomb, should we not bomb? I mean, besides the idea that it contained classified information and there is a hearing in the Congress going on as we speak, but do you have any comment on this?
It's dehumanizing, it's disgusting, it's vile, but I think also it's not new. So when we began lobbying lawmakers back in 2015, a lot of the congressional members and people of the Senate, they did not know where Yemen was. So the Obama administration was bombing Yemen, and lawmakers who are supposed to authorize war had no idea where Yemen was on the map. So anytime we would go lobby, anytime after that, we would have to bring a map of Yemen in order to show these lawmakers where Yemen is located, and then have to describe to them what the U.S. is doing in our family's homeland. So it's anti-Arab, it's racist, it's dehumanizing, but it's very much part of the American legacy. And it's really not new, and the American people, I think, and I hope, what has happened, since, the last almost 2 years now, and what's happening in Gaza is that the people are waking up. The American people are waking up, and they're realizing that actually America is the world's war architect. And this plan that was laid out in the Signal chat was just an example of what has been happening for over the last few decades, whether it's in Yemen or Iraq, Syria, anywhere in the Middle East and outside of it, Cuba, for the Philippines. War is an American legacy. And the way they promote war is to dehumanize the people that they are bombing. So Iran-backed Houthis, that's justification for war. Or even talking about sending them a message. So bombing people, including women and children, civilians, that sends a message. Like, this country is run by human beings or what? Or maniacs, right? Genocidal maniacs. We call Netanyahu a genocidal maniac. But how is the U.S. any different? If they are calling bombing cancer treatment centers as a message, what is the message? That the U.S. is the world's largest terrorist?
Yeah, and I really want the people to go to the article. Not that I am a fan of Jeffrey Goldberg. I have to mention that he is a former IDF soldier, and he was in prisons in Israel, and he was involved in torturing of Palestinian prisoners. So I'm no fan of him, and I don't like him. And I think many people actually in the media are saying, why did you leave the conversation? As a journalist, your loyalty should be to the American people because otherwise, how would we have known about the Watergate files? It's because the journalists decided that they want to expose the power game that is going on. Jeffrey Goldberg withdrew himself from the chat because he did not want, of course, to jeopardize a policy that supports Israel, because he's a Zionist and he is supportive of bombing Iraq, the war on Iraq, and of course he supports probably the bombing of Yemen. But I want really people to go and see and read the article, because it falls exactly with what Jihan is saying. They are going to kill innocent civilians because of sending a message. And they do mention, Jihan, Europe, and they want Europe to pay for it somehow. And they mention Egypt. But maybe people don't understand the value, the geopolitical value of the location of Yemen and the Bab el-Mandeb. Can you just talk about that a little bit? Like what kind of world trade goes through Yemen, and the geopolitical importance of Yemen? And maybe that explains what is going on initially with launching wars on Yemen.
Yes, you actually hit the nail on the head. It's always been about Bab el-Mandeb Strait because that canal allows for about 4 million barrels of oil to run through it every day. So it is, a large global trade route. And it is crucial for the Gulf and the West to ensure that not only that route remains open, but also that they have a monopoly over it. So, ever since for the last few decades, that area has been an area of contention. All of our bordering countries have been trying to take control, at least have a political arm in the country. So this is actually why the internationally recognized government or the Sharia is internationally recognized, because they allow the Gulf and the West to have. They allowed when there was a little bit more control from their end. They allowed for this canal to be, monitored by Gulf and Western allies. And what the Houthis or Ansarullah are saying are like, no, actually, this is our area of control. We dictate what happens and what comes through here, and that's why they have been pushing back and rejecting and even threatening Israeli-owned ships. That area has been an area of contention for many years, and it's really about the economy. It's really about money, and that's what war is about, anyways, right? It's a capitalistic venture in order to increase production, increase revenue, increase wealth, and unfortunately, a lot of the everyday people don't realize that that's what it boils down to. So at the cost of human loss and suffering, we are going to bomb people, dehumanize them first, and then bomb them in order to control, their country and their borders, so we can continue to have oil.
I want to thank you, Jihan Hakim, Chair of the Yemeni Alliance Committee, for being on True Talk. Thank you so much, and Ramadan Mubarak, and Happy Eid, inshallah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Ramadan Mubarak and Eid Mubarak to everyone else. Take care.
Thank you, Jihan. We're going to be right back very soon.
يا حبيبتي نعرف اللي طالت غيبتي ليا ضحكوا على شيبتي وشيبة ولا تشيبة ما حبوا تيبتي بس تستنى في خيبتي ولا رنبة طلعت ثيبتي.
Welcome back to True Talk on WMNF 88.5 FM. There's a Senate committee hearing that's going on right now, where they're grilling Tulsi Gabbard and others about this Signal Gate. It's being called Signal Gate because the app that the Secretary of Defense and others and the Vice President were using that they accidentally added this editor of The Atlantic on, and that's how we now know about the story. They were using the messaging app called Signal. So that's why they're calling it Signal Gate. And Tulsi Gabbard is being grilled because one of the names on the group chat is called TG, and they keep asking her, "Are you TG?" And she's refusing to answer.
Imagine if this was happening during the Biden administration, not that I'm a fan of it. Or remember, Ahmed, when they wanted to put Hillary Clinton on trial because of the server and using an unsecured server for her emails. But I am reading now, Ahmed, that maybe one of the reasons that they meant to use Signal is not to have accountability in their communication, and that this is part of the Project 2025, where like you're not supposed to leave traces where you can be incriminated. But I really urge the people to listen to the hearing and to see the double standard when it comes to which administration has committed a breach of security and how the media, maybe Fox News is the only one that is saying that there is nothing happened, it's normal, it's okay. But actually, Ahmed, they, according to the article by Goldberg, they actually had the sites mentioned, the logistics. So, I mean, Jeffrey could have told the Yemenis what was going to happen or just stopped it. I mean, there was really.
I think that would probably get him in some trouble if he does that. Like how he. However,
he doesn't have to reveal the sites, but he could have prevented the killing of 32 people.
I think he would end up in trouble if he did anything like that. So I don't know if that's.
They should be in trouble for adding him into a very sensitive...
Well, they are. They're in a hot seat right now. I want to play what they're doing right now. This is part of just happened moments ago. Of course, again, if you're just joining us, this is True Talk on WMNF. We're actually pre-recording the show. The show is now this week. It was recorded on Tuesday at 12 p.m. from 12 to 1. So this is happening right now. But this will actually... Our show is going to air on Thursday. So this has already happened, but you can go back and find it. But this is fascinating looking at the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, just refused to answer questions. Listen to this.
Did you participate in the group chat with Secretary of Defense and other Trump senior officials discussing the Yemen war plans?
Senator, I don't want to get into the specifics.
Ma'am, were you on? You're not going to be willing to address. So you're not. Are you denying? Matt, will you answer my question, ma'am? You were not TG on this group chat.
I'm not going to get into the specifics.
So you refuse to acknowledge whether you were on this group chat.
Senator, I'm not going to get into the specifics.
Why are you going to get into the specifics? Is it because it's all classified?
Because this is currently under review by the National Security Council.
Because it's all classified? If it's not classified, share the text now.
As the White House previously stated,
is it classified or non-classified information on this text?
I can confirm.
Director Radcliffe, were you on the group chat? Contact the Defense Secretary or others after this specific military planning was put out and say, hey, we should be doing this in a SCIF?
There was no classified material that was shared in that.
So then if there was no classified material, share it with the committee. You can't have it both ways. These are important jobs. This is our national security. Bobbing and weaving and trying to, filibuster your answer. So please.
Hoax that allowed him to become part of this signal thread? Please answer the question. You don't insult the intelligence of the American people. Did he invite himself to the signal thread?
I don't know how he was invited, but clearly he was added.
Clearly it was. Finish your sentence, please.
Clearly he was added to the signal group. Your question is...
You don't know that the president's national security advisor invited him to join the signal thread? Everybody in America knows that. Does the CIA director not know that?
I've seen conflicting reports about who added the reporter to the Signal messaging
group. It's perfectly appropriate that there was a reporter added, especially one that the Secretary of Defense says is deceitful, highly discredited, a so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes over and over again. Is your testimony that it was appropriate that he was added to this Signal thread?
No, of course not. And
why did you not call?
Hold on, Senator.
You're
mischaracterizing my testimony.
Good. You answered the question. Let me ask you: when he was added to the thread, you're the CIA director. Why didn't you call out that he was present on the Signal thread?
I don't know if you use Signal messaging app.
I do. Not for classified information, not for targeting.
Well, neither do I, Senator. Neither do I, Senator.
Well, that's what your testimony is today.
It absolutely is not, Senator. Were you not listening at the beginning?
No.
When I said that I was using it as permitted, it is permissible to use.
I agree that's your testimony.
Yeah.
I agree that's your testimony. You asked me if I use it, and I said not for targeting. Not for class.
Wow, this is explosive testimony. First time we see this Congress going, this hard on Trump's, appointees, going after the Director of National Intelligence and the Director of the CIA. This is John Ratcliffe. Having difficulty answering these questions because it's obvious they know that they screwed up.
Yeah, they just needed to say, we're going to have an investigation. We messed up big time. And I think also one of the revelations, Ahmed, is the guy who started this chat group was in Russia at the time.
Oh, so the from this National Security Council?
Yeah, I think Michael Waltz is the guy.
So I haven't seen that yet, but they can't just say we're going to do an investigation because it would be an investigation of them. They're the ones that were in the group chat. It wasn't like somebody else.
Yeah.
So who's going to investigate them? But I think one thing that I think that you mentioned that may not be as clear is that the reason why you're saying and not to leave any evidence is because other communication vehicles that are classified and technology within the system is all archived and documented, whereas Signal would not be. And you're saying they don't want to have a paper trail because of that, right?
If you read the article, you will find out that they are alluding to the fact that Trump has zero knowledge of international strategic, geopolitical, complex issues, and Vance was trying to tell them that this is not the right time to do it. And Vance can't by himself go to Trump and tell him that because he will, all hell will break loose on Vance. So he wants everybody, if like the whole team should tell Trump, no, let's not do it, or let's do it. So when he realized that maybe there is consensus on attacking Yemen, then he said, if you attack it, I will be with you. But one thing, Ahmed, is... No,
but one thing so what you're saying is basically J.D. Vance and the others, they're terrified of Trump.
Yeah, they are. They know that he has no clue.
So I acknowledge that in the chat. Well, this is very damning and embarrassing because they realize that they're trying to manipulate Trump into things because Trump himself had said he doesn't want to launch new wars. He doesn't want, he's more of an isolationist. And then these guys that are supposed to be America first are doing things that are not necessarily America first.
Exactly. And if you look at the first time a reporter put the mic in the face of the Secretary of Defense, the guy was almost going to jump on the reporter and the mic. He's not, how can I say it? He did not compose himself. And all he did was attack.
You're talking about Pete Hegseth?
Yeah, Pete Hegseth. I mean, he's not.
Secretary. Before that, these guys, a lot of them were just either in the media, talking heads, podcasters. So they're not seasoned politicians to keep their composure and to keep their cool.
Yeah.
And a lot of you're seeing that now when under a crisis. But Summer, we only have 30 seconds left. We have to wrap up the show. It's been, I'm sure this kind of stuff will continue. We'll have more to talk about next week. Happy Eid. Eid is going to be, either Sunday or Monday. So enjoy your Eid. To all our listeners, have a happy Eid. Eid Mubarak to everyone. Ramadan is almost over. Take care, Summer. This is WMNF Tampa. The Scoop is next. Have a great weekend and enjoy your Eid for those celebrating.
قالوا يا حبيبتي نعرف اللي طالت غيبتي الأيام ضحكوا على شيبتي وشيبة ولا تشيبة ما حبوا تيبتي ناس تستنى في خيبتي والأرنبة طلعت ذيبتي وشوف أنا